I've got some inside information for you. What was the Minister of Defense, the Israeli Minister of Defense, doing on October 7th? Where was he? What did he experience? Here is Yoav Gallant himself sharing exactly what he experienced on the early morning of October 7th. This is fascinating. It's just great to hear from someone who's so deeply inside what he was experiencing.
I want to talk about October 7th. Every time I have a first-time guest on this podcast, I ask them to take us to where they were the morning of October 7th as they learned what was happening, whether they were somehow involved or they were watching it from afar. Most of our guests were watching it, not in it like you were in it. It's one of those dark days where everyone who cares about Israel, and even those who don't care about Israel, does remember to some degree, often more than to some degree, quite vividly, what was happening, what they were thinking. Can you talk a little bit about where you were that morning and how you were learning about the events?
It was Saturday, and I'm getting ready to go to a cycling journey in the hills near to my house. And all of a sudden, my youngest daughter calling me and said to me, there are sirens in Tel Aviv. So I called the Chief of Staff.
Chief of Staff of the Army.
Of the Army, Herzl Levi. And he said to me, this is from Gaza. It's not only rockets. I'm getting into a special evaluation of the situation. Within 1 hour, I've been in Tel Aviv, and I stayed there. I think I didn't see home for another 3 months. After a short period of time, I collect all the generals, and my directions at the end of this meeting, before 9 o'clock, were one, we are in a war, and don't take it lightly, because once a Minister of Defense says this is a war, it means everything is normally open. You do whatever is needed. Second, I said to them, recruit everybody, rank and file, regular and reserve, everybody. And third, beside sending them to the south, which already started, send them also to the north on chains with the armed vehicles on the roads. Don't wait for transportation for the tanks. And the reason was that I couldn't believe that Hamas will open a war against Israel without coordination with Hezbollah. Now, it didn't happen eventually, but when we find the servers and the computers and the documents of Hamas in December and later on in February, we learned to know that this coordination, according to Hamas, was accomplished. It wasn't accomplished according to Hezbollah. And eventually, Hezbollah didn't participate in a vast attack against Israel. And after, I think, 12 hours, we were deployed on the area, ready to everything in the north.
At what point did you appreciate the magnitude of this? I take your point that you said you knew it was a war, but this was not any war.
So you have to understand the situation. Everything was foggy. The chain of command, especially in Gaza, were either killed or wounded. Of course, a lot of them survived, but very important figures like commander of Southern Brigade were killed very early.
And when you say in Gaza, you mean in the envelope of Gaza, in the south?
The Gaza division
of the IDF.
Of the IDF is on the border.
On the border, okay.
Okay, and the commanders went to the front. This is very, very unique. We have been to a situation where generals were fighting with rifles and even with knives. And eventually, these are the people that block the invasion of Hamas and stop them from getting to Beersheba and Ashkelon. And the bravery of these soldiers, commanders, the fighters, some of them female that were driving tanks and commanding battalions. This was exceptional. I'm an old soldier, but I've never seen anything like that. The next day, on October 8, I went to see it with my own eyes. I have been to Ofakim, to Be'eri, to Nahal Oz and other places.
So these are the kibbutzim in the south.
The kibbutzim and the city of Ofakim, where 50 people were killed. I went and I saw the bodies still on the ground. And I learned very fast that although the flag was the flag of Hamas, we were attacked by a commando division. Platoons, companies, battalions, pickups, boats, drones, parachutes, heavy machine guns, doctors, their doctors in the area, communication officers in the area. Everything well arranged in something like 70 different places, different routes. So the magnitude was understood in the first days, but it's very difficult to arrange from 0 to 100 in 1 second for a big formation like a military. So it took a long time before the IDF succeeded to bring people from different places, battalions and brigades. And it took us few days to stop the enemy and then to clean the area.
In 2006, one Israeli soldier was taken hostage, Gilad Shalit, and one Israeli. And it, to some degree, paralyzed so many facets of Israeli public life. There was this understandable focus, this obsession over many years, sadly, took years, to get Gilad Shalit out. On October 7th, at some point you learn, or October 8th, that over 200, some 250 Israelis are taken hostage. When you learned that, what were you thinking? Because again, it's just another very dramatic, catastrophic indication that this is a whole new world, a country of 9.5 million people, 250 people taking hostage is extraordinary. It means that everybody in Israel has some kind of direct or indirect connection to someone taken hostage. When did it hit you, the magnitude of just that aspect of this war, just the sheer impossible to get your head around high number of Israelis taken hostage?
When I entered the first time to the headquarters, and this is about the first minutes that I'm learning what's going on, I understood.
Morning of October 7th.
Morning of October 7, 8 o'clock or so, I understood that we are in a different situation. We already knew that there are dozens of hostages. We have seen videos of terrorists inside the Israeli communities along the border, including Sderot. And I got to the recognition immediately that a lot will be depend on my behavior. Determination, focus, how do you analyze the situation, and how do you keep cool and focus. And because it was very clear in the beginning that this is not only a battle against terrorists, because there are more and more hostages. Later on, we learned to know that it's over 250. Second, in Gaza, there are 2 million people, and I knew that we are going to take over Gaza immediately. There is no other solution. So this is very difficult. And at the same time, I'm thinking about the north. I was worried that Hezbollah will attack when we will be in a very low point. And basically this was their plan. It didn't happen. I knew from this point, because of my experience, Gilad Shalit was kidnapped when I was commanding Southern Command, and Aviv Kochavi was the commander of Gaza Brigade. I knew that with Hamas there is only one solution. You need to take from them something that they need. And this is their lives, this is their equipment, headquarters, and so forth and so on. If you stay on the lines and ask them to negotiate, they won't negotiate the prisoners. They will negotiate the future of Jerusalem and
I mean, they won't negotiate Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons. They want something much more.
For them, it doesn't matter if a terrorist is staying 20 years in jail or 25 years in jail. So they have a long time. And they are, they have the fetch and they don't care. For us, it's very important. I understood very well that if you want to achieve something from Hamas, you have to take from them something that is dear for them. And this is their life, this is their munition, equipment, industry, everything that connected to their military ability. And if you do it in the right way, eventually they will come to you in order to achieve a deal. And that's what happened in the first deal.
Wow. It's fascinating to hear what he experienced, and also, of course, what he's sharing about negotiations with Hamas, which I think is what Israel is doing now. I think the fact that they are under a tremendous threat, that America is saying that they're going to take over Gaza, is actually bringing them to the negotiation table in a greater fashion than they normally would. We need them to come to the negotiating table fully to restore every single hostage. That's really what Israel has to find a way of accomplishing.